Well, good evening, race fans. Scott Bloomquist once said that Batesville Motor Speedway was his favorite racetrack in the country. He was a 5-time winner of the Topless 100 here. That's more than anyone else. He won 8 Dirt Late Model Dreams, more than anyone else. He had 94 career wins in the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series, most all time, 3-time champion. He won 100 Half a Tampa UDTRA races. He won 33 World of Outlaw Late Model Series races as well. But this morning we lost Scott Bloomquist to a vintage airplane crash in Mooresburg, Tennessee. He was 60 years old. I've had the pleasure of knowing him since 1987. I was fortunate enough to do all of his Lucas Oil wins over the years, all 94 of them. I did his 200th career win. I did his 500th career win both at Brownstown, and did his 600th at Wheeling, Missouri at the Diamond Nationals. Scott and I were the same age, born the same year. He would have been 61 in November. Our hearts are broken. We've got 53 cars here to do battle tonight in memory of Scott Bloomquist. Again, as I mentioned, he was the only 5-time winner of this Topless 100. Billy Moyer is here tonight. Those two are intertwined forever in dirt late model racing. If Billy Moyer can win tomorrow night, he would tie Scott Bloomquist for the most wins in the history of this race. God rest your soul, Scott. We thank you for the thrills and chills. We thank you for all the excitement you provided over the years. Before tonight's racing started, I interviewed several drivers in the pit area and their thoughts on the passing of Scott Bloomquist. Mark, you've known Scott for a long, long time. His passing this morning in Tennessee. If there was one word you could think of to describe Scott Bloomquist, what would it be?
GOAT. He was, the greatest of all time in this sport. And I think, he was one of the pioneers that helped bring the sport to where it is today. Obviously, I worked with him with the outlaw thing back in '04. And, Scott was, the sport as far as, he had the name, he had, all the resume and everything, and the late model world, wouldn't be the same probably without him.
Not only did he know where every nut and bolt and what it did and what to do on a race car, also a pioneer in merchandise sales as well.
In the early days, he was ahead of his time. He had the t-shirt trailer and was, bringing it around, 20, 25 years ago. So he was ahead of his time in that deal as far as the merchandising goes.
Over the years, though, people don't really, and until the last few years, maybe, I think you've gotten a lot closer.
Yeah, we always had respect for each other. Back when we did the World of Outlaw thing, I felt like that Scott and I built a bond back then, and we understood each other a lot better. And then here in the last 3 or 4 years, Randy Sweet was kind of the middle guy between us. And then when Randy died, Scott started calling me and saying, "Hey man, can I talk to you, call you and talk to you, because I don't have Randy no more." But he looked at Randy, for a lot of direction. And, I told him, I had no problem, because, the competition thing's one thing, but you had to respect Scott as a competitor. He was without a doubt, one of the toughest competitors this sport ever seen, because he didn't always have the most organized race team. He'd show up late and barely, maybe not even make it for hot laps, and then go out and qualify and set fast time and win the race. And, and then if he had to go to the next track, the next day he'd be late again, So Scott, I feel like, did it off of his sheer ability and talent. And, you know, I was just did an interview with Rigsby, and we were like two opposites. You know, I was organized and trying to keep everything, you know, together, and Scott just did it off of his sheer ability.
If there's one word to describe Scott, what would that be?
Committed. I mean, committed to this sport. He's one of the guys that you look back that had to. Everybody that kind of came up before me, and even when I came up, it was a different way of doing it. You had to sacrifice and commit everything to doing this. And you still do it today, but there's always more time, I feel like, to do things other than maybe sit here at this track for 20 plus hours a day or work on your craft. Guys seem to be able to branch out and do other things, but Scott was one of them that, you know, probably 100% focused on that car all the time, every day.
We talk about Kevin Rumbley and all he's done the last few years, but Scott knew every nut and bolt on a race car, right? And what it did and how it affected it, right?
Yeah, I mean, most of the guys that like I said, that came up when he was doing it, they had to, it wasn't like, there was no like buy a part from manufacturers like there is with Rocket today, or other chassis manufacturers, Bicknells and a lot of them guys all over the country for different divisions, that basically you can pretty much get a car, I guess, almost in a box and put it together, and everything's labeled and everything. You know, the way a lot of the guys like Scott came up doing it, it was a lot of fabrication and a lot of trying and you know, seeing what would make your stuff better, and that's time consuming. The stories are obviously there of the hours of testing and practicing, trying to get better and perform to make that car as fast as he was able to make his cars over the years. And like I said, it takes a lot of commitment and time away from everything else to do it. So you can't say that he wasn't 100% trying to do his craft.
You had a lot of races with him over the last 20 years. Is there one that stands out to you?
Oh, I don't know. We had so many. It's funny. It's like a blur. I mean, I feel like I just started racing, and here I am 20 plus years into it. And, you know, he was there before, and he was the guy that everybody looked at for the records, him and Billy Moyer, of who you chasing. You're chasing these two guys that seem to win all these races. And, you know, it's a quite a day, and a sad day all the way around. And my heart goes out to his family, and especially his daughter. It's hopefully they can find some strength and get through it, because it's not easy. You know, I still live it every day, so it's definitely not easy.
If you had one word about Scott, what would that be?
I don't know about one word, but I think it's the way you'd expect Scott Bloomquist to go out. You know, he's the greatest of all time, even though we're at Batesville with Billy Moore and everyone else. I think everyone knows that he was the best, and it is really sad and it's unfortunate, but yeah, just prayers for his family and everybody.
What would your dad have to say? Back in the 90s, you go to Eldora, it was going to be Scott, your dad, Donnie, or Billy Moyer.
Yeah, so I haven't talked to Dad today, but I was talking to my brother Tristan, and he said Dad was like, man, he's my age, and, you know, just kind of in a little bit of disbelief. So I'm sure it shocks the world, the racing world at least, dirt, asphalt, everything in between. So he is one of the best racers there's ever been. Him, Steve Kinzer on the dirt side, and then obviously you got your asphalt guys. So like I said, definitely a sad day, and prayers to his whole family and friends and everybody.
What is one word you would use to describe Scott Bloomquist?
Historic. You know, he's definitely, you know, probably the best to ever climb in a dirt late model, and it was pretty cool to get to share some of the short battles that we had over the years. I don't have any real great stories with him. Like you said, my career hadn't been that long, but and whenever he was racing hard, I was normally running in the back. So we didn't get to race together very much, just whenever he was lapping me or something. But yeah, it's you know, growing up and watching him and Billy Moyer and Jimmy Owens and all these guys just go at it. It was really, really cool to be able to get to witness all that and be around it, and you know, and get to talk to him. And he gave me some advice a couple of times, you know, down the road. And yeah, so I didn't know Scott personally, but you know, whenever you were racing beside him, you felt like you did. And it was yeah, it's a sad day in the dirt late model industry, but all in all, you know, I think he's going to be honored in the right way, and I don't think his achievements are ever going to be forgotten.
Your dad and him, of course, had great battles, not only Lucas Oil Series, but Eldora, but all crown jewel events all over the country. I think there was a mutual respect between those two.
Oh, absolutely. Anybody that climbs in a dirt late model every week, I think everybody has respect for each other. But yeah, they raced beside each other for a long time, and I know that they had some barn burners, and yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to listen to my dad tell some of the stories and just how far ahead he was in his time, and there will maybe never be another dominance like, Scott was as far as longevity and how long he was dominant for, for 15, 20, 25 years. It was him and Billy, and then you had some comers and goers over the years, but they were solid for so long, and it's so impressive to see because in today's world, it's just not, it's hard to believe that you can be sustained that long and win as many races and dominate races like that. So, yeah, it's like I said, it's a sad day, and whenever you think you've lost one of the heroes of the sport, it's it doesn't make it easy. But like I said, it's I think we're going to remember him for the right ways, and hopefully we get to honor him in the right way and race in his name here this weekend.
If there's one word that can sum up Scott Bloomquist, what would that be?
Controversy. Yeah, he touched so many people during the racing, whether it's good or bad, and he and I had our differences. We had some good races, some bad races, but in the end, he sped up our whole racing learning curve tremendously, and was majorly responsible for most of our success, and I appreciate that. And you'll never be forgot.
When you drove his cars, obviously you won a Lucas Oil Championship right in a Bloomquist car, and how helpful was he during that time period?
It was helpful for a little while, and then it became a competition, and a lot of grudge matches because we were beating him. He ran second to us a lot into his own cars, and so on the track we had our differences, but business was business, and that never really affected nothing. So it was really good. He's going to be missed. Miss talking to him, and it's just hard.
Growing up in Tennessee, and before even you started racing, you had people like Scott and Jeff Purvis and all them. I mean, it's incredible the talent that's come out of the state of Tennessee.
It is incredible. One of my best memories when I was a lot younger, and he'd started racing. I think he had the Wendy's car, and me and one of my buddies built a little model, and it was a little model remote control car, and we took it over to him and showed it to him on the back of his car at Tazewell, and I think it's him and Katrina there, and he was like, "Man, that's awesome, that's cool." He talked and all that stuff, and man, that was one of my first memories of him, other than watching him race, and then to be on the track with him and competing with him and Moyers. I mean, they're two legends of the sport, and that was just a part of life that I'm proud to be a part of, and it'll never be forgotten.
Well, thank you to the drivers and Mark Richards and for what they said. That was terrific tribute to Scott. Scott was born in Fort Dodge, Iowa in 1963. His dad was an airline pilot, and they moved to Corona, California in the late 70s. Began his racing career in 1980, and then moved to East Tennessee later in the mid-80s. And he did it his way. We'll be back after this from Batesville, Arkansas.